I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Sarah, for almost 8 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty fast, and got married right after I finished my master's degree. We were, I thought, the picture of a happy couple. She was beautiful, smart, funny, and we had a pretty good life. Or at least I thought so. Sarah was pregnant with our first kid when everything started to change. She was on maternity leave, which I figured would be a pretty intimate time for us, bonding, preparing for the new baby, maybe a little extra closeness. But instead, I started noticing little things. She'd be on her phone more than usual, always hiding her screen when I came into the room. She'd get a little defensive if I asked questions about her day or what she was doing. I chalked some of it up to pregnancy mood swings or her just needing her space. But then, things got worse. I started finding random receipts in her purse, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, Uber rides, little things that didn't add up. I remember one day I came home early from work, and I caught her with her phone pressed to her ear, whispering. When I asked her who she was talking to, she just said it was her sister, Lisa. But I saw the hotel pamphlet she'd shoved into her purse, the one with the name of a hotel I didn't recognize. When I pressed her, she suddenly got bitchy, snapping at me that I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her, and that I was being insecure, that she was just out with some friends having a good time. She told me I was overreacting, that she was pregnant and tired and needed me to be supportive, not suspicious. But I wasn't stupid. Things weren't adding up. In the back of my mind, I had this gnawing feeling that she was hiding something. The more I looked, the more I found. My gut told me that Sarah was cheating on me. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence kept piling up. Then one night, I decided to follow her after she said she was going to meet a friend for coffee. I never thought I'd do such a thing, but I was desperate to find out the truth. I parked a few blocks away and saw her slip into that same hotel with a man I didn't recognize. She was laughing, flirting. I could see it clear as day from where I was hiding behind a tree. My stomach sank. That's when I knew for sure. She was sleeping with her boss, Mark, the guy who's been sniffing around her at work for months. I caught her red-handed, and it felt like everything shattered in that moment. I never thought she'd do this, especially not during my pregnancy, not to me. And the worst part, she's been lying about everything ever since I confronted her. After I saw her come out of that hotel with him, I couldn't breathe right. My head was spinning. I just stood there frozen, watching her walk back to her car like nothing was wrong. My mind was racing. How long has this been going on? Did she think she could hide it from me forever? Did she even feel guilty? Honestly, I felt like I was hit by a truck. The next day, I couldn't keep it inside. I waited until she was out for her usual run, probably to meet Mark again, and I started digging through her phone. I needed to see if this was just a one-time thing or something more. I knew I was crossing a line, but I couldn't help myself. I found messages, all flirty and suggestive, between her and Mark. They were planning secret meetups, talking about how special she was, how she'd never felt this alive. It was sickening. But what broke me was a text from her saying she'd never felt better since working with him, like she was proud of what she was doing. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof was right there. My head was pounding, and I felt betrayed on every level. The woman I loved, the woman I'd trusted with my life, was lying to me. I thought about her pregnant belly, about how vulnerable she was supposed to be, and I felt sick thinking she'd do this to me, to us. I knew I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending, so I waited until she came home from her errand, and I told her I knew everything. I laid out the receipts, the texts, the hotel details. Her face turned so damn bitchy when I did. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied, said it was all a mistake, that Mark was just a work buddy, and that I was crazy for jumping to conclusions. Said she'd never cheat on me, especially not now when she's pregnant. She called me paranoid, insecure, and worse. It felt like she was trying to gaslight me, make me think I was losing my mind. I was furious, but mostly broken. All I could see was her lying there, denying everything, even though I had the proof in my hands. She kept crying, saying I was accusing her for no reason, that I didn't trust her, that I was ruining everything. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But deep down, I knew the truth, and it hurt like hell. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. not with her so dismissive and manipulative. I felt this mixture of rage, sadness, and helplessness all at once. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't just forget what I saw. After she finished her empty excuses and denial, I just sat there staring at her. My mind was a mess: anger, betrayal, a crushing sense of loss. I thought I knew her, thought I loved her, but now I wasn't so sure anymore. The worst part was her attitude, so bitchy, so dismissive, like she didn't give a damn about how much she hurt me. She kept saying I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that Mark was just a friend, and I was just making a scene. But I knew better. I'd seen enough and I'd read enough messages to know it wasn't just a friendship. I remember feeling this cold wave of realization wash over me. I had trusted Sarah with everything: my love, my future, our family, and now I was staring at a complete betrayal. I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to make her admit the truth. But I also knew I had to stay calm, even if every fiber of my body was screaming to just lose it. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't some fool, that I wasn't going to be played for a fool. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I'd seen and read. The hotel receipts, the texts, her dismissive tone. I felt this deep, aching hurt that I couldn't quite explain. Was I just a placeholder for her? Did she ever truly love me, or was I just convenient until someone better came along? I kept asking myself these questions, knowing I'd find no easy answers. I kept thinking about the little girl inside her, her pregnant belly, and how vulnerable she should have been. Instead, she was sneaking around, lying, playing with fire. Part of me wanted to confront her again, demand she come clean, but I also knew that would only make things worse. I was torn between wanting to do something impulsive and trying to think through my next move. I felt like I was losing my mind. Eventually, I decided I needed space. I told her I was going for a walk, just to clear my head. As I stepped outside, I felt this huge weight settle over me. I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I thought about everything we'd built, and I wondered if it was even salvageable anymore. Honestly, I didn't even know if I wanted to try. All I knew was that my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I didn't sleep that night either, just stared at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd discovered and what it meant for us. The following days were a blur of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. I tried to act normal around her, but everything felt fake. She continued to deny everything, acting like I was the crazy one for even bringing it up. That bitchy attitude of hers only made it worse, like I was just some idiot bothering her while she played her little game. I couldn't stand the way she threw around her tears, as if her lying was a minor inconvenience. Honestly, I wanted to shake her and tell her to stop pretending it was all okay, that I saw through her bullshit. Meanwhile, I was doing my own digging. I couldn't let this go. I hired a private investigator. Yeah, I know, sounds extreme, but I needed proof. I needed to know if there was more than just Mark, if she was sneaking around with anyone else, or if this was some kind of long-term affair. It was painful to even think about it, but I had to be sure. The guy told me she'd been seeing Mark for at least 2 months, that she'd gone to that hotel at least 3 times with him, sometimes more. I also found out she'd been lying about her whereabouts during her pregnancy. She was with Mark, not with her friends, not at her sister's house. Every little piece of evidence just confirmed what I feared most. I felt like I was living in some nightmare. Every message she denied, every excuse she threw at me was just another lie. I started questioning everything: our entire relationship, her feelings, her loyalty. It was like I'd been played for a fool. I couldn't believe I'd let myself trust her so completely. And what made it worse was her attitude. Instead of showing remorse or trying to fix things, she was defensive, bitchy, dismissive. She'd call me paranoid or possessive, even though I had the proof right in front of her face. One night I confronted her again, this time with the evidence spread out on the table. Her face twisted in anger when she saw the photos and texts. She snapped at me, saying I was stalking her, that I was crazy to think she'd sleep with her boss. She called Mark a nice guy and insisted they were just working on a project, that I was jealous and insecure. That was her go-to line. "You're just insecure, Mike. You don't trust me and you're ruining everything." I wanted to scream at her, tell her I'd had enough of her lies. But I just looked at her, feeling this sting deep in my chest, knowing that I'd been betrayed by someone I thought was my partner, my wife, the mother of my child. That moment finally made me realize I had a choice. I could keep going along, pretending everything was fine, or I could do something about it. I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. I started planning my next steps, trying to figure out how to protect myself and my unborn kid from her manipulations. Every part of me wanted to walk away, but I also knew I needed to think carefully about what was best for me, for our baby, for whatever future was left. I just didn't know if I could forgive her or if I even wanted to. All I knew was that my life had changed forever, and I was left standing in the ruins of what I once believed was real. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I tried to keep my head clear, but every time I looked at Sarah, I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a manipulator, someone I no longer recognized. The worst part was that she still insisted she was innocent, that Mark was just a coworker, and that I was just imagining things. She would get bitchy every time I brought up the evidence, accusing me of invading her privacy, of trying to control her. It was exhausting. I finally decided I had enough. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, not when I'd caught her red-handed, and she was still acting like I was the crazy one. I sat her down and told her that I wanted a serious talk, no more bullshit. I explained that I knew about her affair, that I'd seen the hotel receipts, the texts, everything. She looked at me with that same bitchy glare, scoffing and trying to dismiss it all. She kept saying I was overreacting, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was being paranoid because I was insecure. I told her straight up that I wasn't falling for her lies anymore, that I'd had enough of her bullshit. That was when she really flipped out. She started screaming, crying, calling me all sorts of names: controlling, jealous, crazy. She said I was ruining her pregnancy, that I was making her miserable, and that I didn't deserve her love. Honestly, it was like watching some actress in a bad soap opera. I felt a mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed me so badly, sadness because I still loved her and now I felt like I'd lost her forever. I was so pissed I could have hit something, but instead I just sat there trying to keep my composure. That night I made a decision. I couldn't stay with her, not anymore. Not after what I'd seen and what she'd done. I knew I had to protect myself and our unborn child from her manipulations. I started looking into legal options, what I needed to do to separate, to make sure I had custody rights, and to safeguard her from doing more damage. I also started planning how I'd tell my family, how I'd explain what happened. Part of me wanted to just walk away and never look back, but I knew I had to face the consequences, face the truth. I also realized that I'd been blind to a lot of things: her bitchy attitude, her lies, her dismissiveness, all the warning signs I had ignored. I learned that sometimes the person you trust most can turn out to be the one who hurts you the deepest. My heart still hurt, but I knew one thing: I would never let her manipulate me again. I was done fighting for her love because it was clear she didn't care about my feelings anymore. Now I just wanted to move forward for myself and my kid. That's what's next, figuring out how to rebuild from this mess, even if it's just piece by piece. In the end, I made the decision to separate. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies, especially when the trust had been shattered so completely. I found a lawyer, started the process of divorce, and made sure everything was documented: her affair, her lies, her manipulations. I wanted to do this right, not just for me, but for my kid. I knew that raising a child in a toxic environment wouldn't be right, and I owed it to him or her to make a clean break from all of this chaos. It was painful, no doubt. Walking away from someone I loved and trusted so blindly felt like ripping out a piece of myself. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I could stop pretending that everything was okay, stop questioning every moment I spent with her. I realized I'd been giving her so much of my trust, my love, and my patience, and she had thrown it all away for some fleeting excitement with her boss. Looking back now, I see how blind I was to all the signs. I ignored the little red flags, convinced myself that she was just stressed, just tired, just overwhelmed with pregnancy. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to face it. That's the harsh truth we often don't want to admit. Sometimes the ones we love can betray us in ways we never saw coming. What I've learned from all of this is that trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's nearly impossible to mend. But you can survive the betrayal. You can pick up the pieces, even if it takes time. I've learned to value myself again, to see my worth outside of her lies, and I've come to accept that moving on is the best thing I can do, not just for me, but for my child. So here I am, telling this story not for sympathy but in hopes that maybe someone out there will see the signs early, catch the red flags before it's too late. Because no matter how much you love someone, if they're cheating, lying, and dismissing your feelings, it's better to walk away than to stay and suffer in silence. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. Now I focus on building a new life, one that's honest and true, even if it's just a work in progress.